like to give everybody out there listening a very warm Whitecat welcome, because you're tuned in to the Whitecat Outdoors podcast. So, as we're sitting here listening, before we get into this, obviously you got White here bringing you into at this episode. But before we say anything, we just came in jamming to that intro. I'm sure all of you were jamming too, doing some sweet head banging.
Air guitar slung way down low.
Oh, way down low. But it just dawned on me that we never gave credit to the person that did that intro for us. He wrote it, performed it, we recorded it, all to the credit of him, and it's my brother-in-law, Sam McCautry. So whatever you're doing, driving in the car, you're at work, sitting at home, whatever, stop what you're doing and give Sam a big round of applause. We'll give you a second here. Yep, everyone.
Thank you, Sam.
Yep, thanks a lot, Sam.
Thank you, Sam, we love it.
Appreciate it.
Yep, you're great, buddy. We love you. So right, I guess we're ready for it now. Are we? We ready?
Who do we got at the table
tonight? Sitting over here to my left, we got our buddy Luke. He hasn't been on in a few episodes, so how's it going, buddy?
Oh, it's going good. Feels good to be back, rather.
Yeah, I bet it does. And over here to my right, we got Nick.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
And then we got the man of the hour. We're doing something a little bit different this week. We're not focusing on one specific outdoor topic or something like that. We're gonna call it a host hot seat, and we want you guys to get to know who we are and what we do other than get outside, what gets us outside. And so once a month here for the next few months, we're gonna do tonight we're doing our big bad boy Tommy.
Hey guys, great to be here. Glad to be on the show. It's going to be a good one. I can tell already.
Yeah, I can tell too. So yeah, that's what we're going to do for the host hot seat. The next couple months, you guys are going to get to really know us with a podcast apiece and, get to know us a little bit better. So those of you that don't know us, feel like we're best buds.
That's exactly right. So Tommy, why don't you jump right in and let us know, where it all started with the old Tommy the Cat. Getting outdoors, where did it all start?
Can you think back, when was the first time you either picked up a fishing pole or walked out into the woods with your mentor hunt or whatever? Can you recall that first outdoor experience?
So as far as fishing goes, I can't even recall, honestly, when I started fishing. I have pictures of me sitting on my dad's lap on the dock in our pond in the backyard that I don't even remember, that specific time. So that just goes to show you how long ago that started. I know I was about 2 years old when my dad would take me out there, and I'd just sit on his lap while he fished. But
you were teaching him what to do, I know.
Yeah, probably. I'm good like that. But no, my first big outdoor experience that really clicks in my mind is going up to the Climber property with my dad. I started going up there when I was 5 years old. Me and him, it was a tradition. We'd go up the Saturday before Thanksgiving. That's the New York rifle, or back then it was actually shotgun season. It was their opening day of gun season, the Saturday before Thanksgiving. And me and my dad, we'd go up together and spend the day up there deer hunting. And I was 8 years old when I watched him harvest his first doe, and I was shaking like a leaf. I was 10 times more excited than he was. That's when I was hooked when it comes to hunting. And my first deer was 2 years after that. It was the first year they started the mentor hunt. I was 10 years old.
That one was in PA.
That was in PA. And 10 years old, my dad took me out. We were sitting together, and I shot my first buck. The very first time I ever went out in the woods with a gun. It was a little 3-point out at my Uncle John's property.
Dominant, though.
Very dominant. I think he was probably 6.5, 7 years old,
On his downhill side?
Yeah, he was definitely on his downhill side.
Yeah.
But
little side story, that was also my first trip into the woods because me and Tom are pretty close in age, and me and my grandfather were hunting just a couple hundred yards away from Tom, and that was, like I said, my first experience. And I remember dropping my glove on my way up the ladder into the tripod me and my grandpa were in, and I let my grandpa know, "Oh, Grandpa, I just dropped my glove. It's down at the bottom of the tree." And he said, "Well, we'll get it at dark." That's how my first hunt started, and I didn't see a single deer all day.
I think one of my first hunts, I went out with Dad. I kind of got bored and picked up the rattle bag and asked him if I could rattle a couple bucks in, and
Just as if it were that easy. You just
Oh yeah.
You just hammer dick
as soon
it.
as
Just
you
go
use
nuts.
this, they come in.
Oh yeah, I was just getting bored and antsy, so he handed me the rattle bag, and I started smacking it around, and didn't I drop it right out of the tree stand, smack the ladder on the way down?
I'm
and,
sure it hit every single rung on the way down.
yeah, that's always how it
That's
works.
a real natural rattling
yeah.
sound, though. The sound of metal on antler.
Oh,
You know.
it makes the most noise, and I'll tell you, kind of like Nick's story, I don't think we saw a thing that day.
Which is funny because Luke, being the least into hunting out of all of us at the table, that kid's had more opportunities at good bucks than anyone in like the 3 times he's ever stepped foot in the woods.
Oh yeah, I've had 9 points at 20 yards broadside.
Split
and
brows. The one was
yeah,
literally like a
and
9-point split brow.
We had it had like a kicker, like a 6-inch kicker, like straight out the side, like just a really unique looking buck, and trail cam pictures of it and everything. But like Tom was saying, he was shaking when my dad shot a buck. Like, I don't know, just it didn't really get me going like the way fishing does. It was just, I don't know, I never could get as amped up as these guys about it.
Speaking of getting amped up, when I was, mentor hunting before I was 12, turkey hunting with my dad, I used to get so excited sitting in the woods, like listening to gobbles, that I'd throw up in the morning.
There were several weeks in a row or seasons when we were little that was, if birds started gobbling, Tom was throwing up.
That's how
you know you're doing it right.
Yeah. So that's just a little thing to show how pumped up.
But you still get like that, like when a 4-point walks out that you can't even shoot because it's illegal in PA, and
His
you're.
knees are clapping.
Oh yeah, he's going nuts.
I filmed for Tom one year. Actually, I got my buck real early in the morning, and I went and sat in the tree with Tom and videotaped. And literally, we had that exact scenario. It was like a 4-point come out, and totally not legal. Guns still leaning up in the shack, and it just shaking like crazy.
I can't help it. It just fires me right up. But if it doesn't get you excited, then honestly, what's the point of being out there?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
totally agree.
Just go buy my meat at the market if that's all it's about.
That's kind of how I feel. If something gets you excited, wax him.
That's what I'm saying. But that's as far as hunting goes. Fishing, I've been going out on the boat with my grandpa. We'd go out there and slam perch on a Saturday morning. It'd be me, my 2 brothers, my dad, my grandpa. The limit's 30 per person, and we'd have our limit by 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it doesn't take long when you're pulling them up 3 at a time. You drop your rod down 10 times and you're done fishing. So,
Well, yeah, my grandpa's retired. He has been for a while, so that's kind of his summer deal. Is every day that in Lake Erie, it's a little bit tough because the weather. You get a north wind, which we often do. You got some pretty serious waves, but any day that it's calm, my grandpa's out there, whether it be perch fishing or walleye fishing, he's out there every single day. And still to this day, that's how he is. But that's kind of...
I don't know anyone that knows Lake Erie better than Grandpa does. Where
No.
the fish are, where they're going to be the next day, and
No, I mean, there's been
insane.
times where I'd go fishing with them, a couple days in a row, and we'd go out to the same spot 2 days in a row, catch our limit, and next time we're going out, we're going to a different spot. I'm like, Grandpa, we just hammered them here the past 2 days. They're not there anymore. And we'd go to a different spot and hammer them again.
I've recalled a couple times too. We'd be out on the boat, and the charter captains would be radioing around, "Hey, who's catching stuff? We're a little slow over here. Hey, we're slow here too." And we're on our way back to the marina with 15, 16 walleye in the cooler.
Well, Grandpa used to actually supply the local club for their company fish fry. Every year they do a fish fry in the summer for their employees and the members of the club. And they would send out a charter with a bunch of the members, and the charter couldn't keep up with the numbers, so they sent Grandpa out, and he'd go and get the limit of walleyes so they had fish for their fish fry.
That's funny.
But another thing,
Gotta swig that Jenny
Yeah.
beer. Tommy's rocking a 22-ounce Jenny beer.
no, I think it's a pounder.
No, it's
Tom, that is
it's
not a pounder.
It said pounder on the cooler.
It does not say pounder. I promise you, it's a 22-ounce, or maybe even 24.
Maybe it's a 2-pounder.
I'm sure it says it on the
In
side.
honor of the
I'm
host
looking
hot
for
seat,
it.
Tom's over here with his.
I did
Big
say, I
Jenny
texted
can.
Nick the other day when we were talking about this. I was like, and you guys, whoever listened to, I think it was the Hunter Klobuchar, the Fish Gods episode, I don't know if you noticed, but Tom got pretty tuned in at the end of that episode. So I was really hoping that he would get tuned in for this one since he's in the hot seat and he's rocking 22-ounce Jennies. Got a little bit of Jaeger over there, and we got all kinds of Keystones in the fridge. So Tommy's gonna have a night tonight.
I'm looking forward to it. I kind of lost track of where I was going on that story.
Getting out of hand already.
We talked about, where you started, and let's get into maybe your highlights of your career as an outdoorsman.
Yeah, we'll start.
How about, before we do highlights, tell us, what do you do, Tom? Like you're in school.
Yeah, outside of being outside,
I like that.
Wow.
Get outside of the outside.
So when I'm
Outside
not
the
outside,
box.
Thinking inside the box.
when
here.
I'm inside, what gets me inside is hitting the books. No, actually, I hate studying, but it's just one of those things you got to do. Right now, I'm in my final semester at Edinburgh University.
Attaboy, Tommy.
Yep.
4.0.
No, not quite. Actually. It's like a 3.01. I brought it way up.
Any collegiate activities that you're a part of?
Yes, and it's something I'm rather proud of.
Tom is a collegiate athlete.
I wouldn't call it that, but yeah, I'm on the club borough baseball team.
Hashtag Borough Baseball. Check us out on Twitter.
It's a good time.
I mean, you guys travel down to Florida and play
Oh
with
yeah,
the
we
big
go down to
dogs, though,
Florida
so, I mean,
for
it's a
spring
legitimate
break.
thing.
Yeah, it's definitely legitimate. I mean, we're playing other universities. It's not like some beer league slow pitch softball. It's definitely
Don't knock on beer league softball. I'm a big fan and athlete myself in the beer softball leagues.
Athlete.
Athlete.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
amazing.
definitely into the slow pitch softball too. But there's something about baseball. But
Something about a 90-mile-an-hour ball getting chucked right across your chest that just
it fires you up. But no, I never played. I played baseball when I was like 10 years old till I was like 13 years old.
That prepares you for college ball.
Yeah, and then I got big into trap shooting. I did that all through high school.
Big trap guy.
Huge trap guy.
Biggest.
Had a lot of fun with that. Went to
Did you
college.
say a wad of fun?
Said a lot of get it wad. Like
Oh,
shotguns
wad.
got
Like
a
a shotgun
wad in the
wad.
shell.
Tom,
That's
you
a
get
solid pun.
it? You get it?
That was a good one. But no, so I did that all the way till college. Started going to college for criminal justice, and it was my junior year of college where I decided, actually backtrack a little bit. We started playing slow pitch softball, and I was
Way
loving
to go to your roots, buddy.
Yeah, I was loving it, and I was like, God, I miss being on the old baseball field,
I
and
believe they call it a diamond.
baseball diamond, if you will. And that's when I found out Edinburgh actually had a club baseball team. So started playing, loved it, love the guys I'm playing with. I'm in my final semester there, graduating here in May, and hopefully the plan is to get into the police academy. I mean, there's a lot of hoops I got to jump through.
Sounds like a lot of hoopla to me.
SpongeBob reference, classic. But aside from school, I mean, school really takes up pretty much.
Yeah, that's
all
pretty
my-
much a full-time job.
Yeah. Well, if you want to talk about my job, I am.
Yeah, why don't you give us the rundown? You're pretty high up in the ranks where you're at working.
As far as student employment goes, I am capped out. Like I can't.
He's the top of the food chain.
Like there's no more promotions from your position.
No, I physically can't get any higher.
That's insane.
And-
How high were you? Like when you started, like how far did you advance?
So when I started, I was just a run-of-the-mill student employee. Making $7.25 an hour, doing the grunt work, doing string trimming, shoveling snow, doing office moves. Bottom of the barrel type stuff. And after 3 years of working there, I finally got promoted to the student foreman position.
Who gave you that title?
I wrote it up myself, came up with the job description and the pay and benefits, and it went through, and I couldn't feel more
So, like,
blessed.
what are you doing now that you got your big promotion?
So now I'm making $7.25 an hour, and I'm shoveling snow in the wintertime. I was string trimming throughout the summer. And when I'm not doing string trimming, shoveling snow, yard work, I'm helping with office moves, event setups and stuff. It's really great.
It sounds like you really really moved up in the world.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
impressive. Just in 3 short years, you've proved yourself and moved up the ranks that way.
And,
Yeah.
and that looks good on a resume too. You can add student foreman on that. And
Absolutely.
That's a huge deal for companies when you're especially.
I'm sure the state police
in the
are going to
police
love that.
academy.
Oh,
yeah.
how could they not?
Is there any, like sayings or anything you guys go by as student workers, and anything you came up with as a student foreman to pass on to the lower guys coming up through the ranks?
Yeah, so me and he was my right-hand man, Mike Rez.
He's the man.
He is the man. Great guy. Couldn't have asked for a better assistant. And to quote Michael Scott, this isn't exactly what Michael Scott said, but it's
We're
similar
paraphrasing.
a little bit. For every great student foreman, there's assistant to the student foreman, and I have chosen the best. And that was Mike in a nutshell. He was great. Couldn't ask for a better student
Standout
foreman.
guy.
He was awesome. But no, we took this picture. It was us leaning up against a tree that we planted.
It's one of the sexiest pictures I've ever
Yeah,
seen.
actually we weren't leaning up against it. I think we were laying down next to it.
Yes, you
And
were laying down.
There might have been a steel FS90 weed whacker, string trimmer in the picture. And on the picture, we wrote a famous quote that goes, "You can't just go through life. You have to grow through life."
Wow.
And we printed that out and we gave it to my boss. And
That's deep.
as far as I know, it's still in his office.
It's definitely still in his office. I can say 100% it's still there.
Frank works there. He's actually the one that got me this great career path that I've journeyed on this past 3 years. He's my cousin, if you guys haven't known that. But
Yeah, I think we did mention that in the past.
yeah,
In case this is their first episode, first of all, what are you doing? But go back, listen to the earlier ones, and you'll catch up.
so yeah, Frank, he's my cousin. He's an operator at Edinburgh University, and at the time I started, I think you were a laborer, correct?
Yes, I was.
And he got me this. Well, he didn't get me this job, but he gave me the info, helped me.
If it weren't for me, you would
Gave a
not-
good word to the boss and got me in there. But outside of being a student foreman, going to school, playing baseball,
Turning
and
a lathe a little bit, haven't you?
I have
in your
I've
day?
turned a little. I have turned some parts, probably more parts than I'd like to turn on a lathe because it was the same exact part for 3 months straight. But nonetheless, I have experience in a metal shop. I'm AWS certified when it comes to welding.
Oh man,
So
It's
I
exciting
can,
stuff.
yeah, I can lay a bead. I can turn parts on a lathe. I've operated a mill.
You sound like an all-around handyman.
Yeah, you could say that. Actually,
How do you find time to get outside, Tom?
I tell you what, believe it or not, I plan my school schedule around getting outside.
what do you mean by that? So, like your school, you obviously you have flexibility. So, how are you setting up your schedule to make the outdoors a second or priority when it
No,
comes
it's
to
absolutely
I
a
was going to say
priority.
main
I
priority.
didn't know
Yeah.
you were flexible, Tom. Are you like in gymnastics also, or like? what
I
is-
can actually almost do a full split.
Really.
That's impressive.
We'll have to test that out sometime.
Well, I'm wearing
Tom,
jeans.
just do it right now. We can just clap and say, "Oh my God, you did it."
I'm wearing jeans, or I would. I just don't want to embarrass you guys. That's it. But what were we talking about?
We were talking
You were
about how
just
you
about to
adjust
take
your
a drink of Jaeger.
I was gonna say, how's
How
that
are you-
Jenny beer treating you?
We got the spotlight on Tom. He's getting a little nervous tonight. But we were talking about how you set up your schedule to
Right.
make
Yep.
the outdoors and hunting your priority.
So, I'm not a huge morning guy when it comes to school and work, but when it comes to hunting, yeah, get me up bright and early. But I grind it out at 6 a.m. every morning at work, so I can work before class. I work 6 to 9 in the morning every day to get my 15 hours in, where most people would rather work at 4 in the afternoon, not have to wake up early.
But you're out in the deer woods.
Exactly. So I work 6 to 9 in the morning, and I schedule my classes, bam, 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 Monday through Friday, right in a row. So I'm usually done every day by 1 or 2 o'clock. So I can head straight from class and get right out into the deer woods.
And I also noticed you stay up pretty late for waking up at 4 a.m. to get to
Yeah,
work.
we
'cause
have club baseball practice every night at 9 o'clock in the dome. That goes till about 11.
And then you're even sometimes after that doing homework so that your weekends are cleared up. 'cause
Yeah, I don't
that's
do
enough-
homework on the weekends.
Shit's
Weekend
for the birds.
bees.
Yeah, through
up,
the-
Hood?
Birds and
Say
bees.
way back when I used to go to college, I'd set up my schedule so I didn't even have anything on Fridays. Like Monday through Thursday was my only classes, and I'd head to camp every weekend during bow season. And same thing, I refuse to do homework if it's not during Monday through Thursday.
Yeah, homework. Even during the week, you know.
You're gonna complain the whole time.
Yeah, I'm not gonna enjoy doing the homework, but I'll do it and I'll bust it out so I don't have to do it on the weekends, because my weekends, that's when I get outside.
Speaking of the weekends and you having time, this is a little something to look forward to. The YouTube channel we've talked about a few times is going to be underway, and
Well, the YouTube channel's up.
the YouTube channel is up, and
And
we
our
got some
podcasts are on
podcasts.
there.
The
But-
video
So
side,
check him out on YouTube, Whitecat Outdoors Podcast.
TBC.
PAWDCAST.
Thank you.
So what else is coming to the YouTube channel, Luke?
We actually, as a group here, invested in a pretty sweet camera, and we're gonna start filming some hunts, some trapping trips, fishing trips, and we're gonna try and cover a whole variety of topics and everything. And honestly, out of the four of us, none of us know anything actually about videography or editing.
Literally
or,
nothing.
Out of my many traits, videography is not one of them.
That is not one of them.
I've
This
watched a
is not one.
few YouTube videos, and I think I'm getting pretty good.
And we knew nothing about podcasting either, and look how far we've come. So we're
So
hoping we can.
we're recording 7 right now. It's
I-
actually we're recording like number 9, but we've actually lost a few. So
It was a learning
So
curve.
we're not that good yet because a couple
getting there.
got deleted. But anyways, as none of us have any clue how to video or edit or anything, Tom is actually gonna come out and film me and a couple buddies this weekend. We're gonna hit a couple spots and try and do some fishing and get some footage and tips and tricks for you guys. So stay tuned for that.
Who knows? I might even grab a rod and reel and get out there. You know?
he
Who
might-
knows?
he-
Could be wild.
He
little
hasn't been out in
POV
a while.
action.
POV.
Tom actually,
Point
I'm
of view,
probably-
Frank.
Oh,
Yeah, I
thank
know
you.
that.
But out of all four of us, like, I get my license January 1st or even before every year and keep fishing. But I don't think any of you guys have got your fishing license yet.
I
have you?
did.
Yeah, I
and do you
have
know
mine.
why I got my fishing license?
Snake permit.
Yeah, you have to have a fishing license to
Have
get a
you
snake
got
permit.
your
I
fishing
have-
license since January 1st this year?
Oh yeah, and I got my snake permit. That's the only reason I got my fishing license is so I
What?
could get my snake permit.
When is snake hunting?
Second weekend of June through the end of July.
Oh, so that's not for a while.
Yeah, we got time.
Yeah, but I was there.
And figured why not?
Yeah, because I was just getting a little excited because my snake is almost done at the taxidermist, and boy, am I excited.
It's gonna look good.
Speaking of videography and how none of us are huge fan of, we actually we had some video taken. Nick was actually the guinea pig videographer, first one to take the camera out and do some filming. Big zoom guy.
I
might
am
add.
a big zoom guy.
And that was taken maybe about a month ago. And yeah, you're like, wow, it should have had a video posted. But out of the 4 hours of film, I couldn't really get a 10-minute video out of it. So we're just gonna.
But man, did we have fun.
We had a great time. Caught a lot of fish, and just kind of, it's like if you got an uneasy stomach riding a roller coaster. That's kind of how it makes you feel watching the footage.
It's like watching
So-
cops
Yeah, so we
with
gotta
the body cam.
yeah, we gotta fine tune that a little bit and get some better footage. So that's what we're.
Did you
hoping
look
for
at the
this weekend.
footage I took the other day, or you just throw that right aside?
Well, the footage that you took the other day, the only thing I caught was this tree branch twice because it was in an awful place where I was trying to cast. So we didn't really have anything the viewers would be.
Quality angles, though.
Oh, they were.
The
phenomenal.
angles were quality. The content was not.
So
Yeah,
you can't
but-
blame that on the
So
camera
that
guy.
was not the
No.
camera guy.
The
That
camera
was,
guy makes the content.
That is
I
true.
don't think so.
You saw all the editing Luke was doing. That picture of my buck, that thing had like 18 extra tines. The camera guy can make it happen.
With the video editing software, I also acquired Photoshop. So stay tuned for that.
Should be a good time.
I caught
it
a
will be.
fish with 4 heads the other day. It's unreal.
Nothing like you've ever seen before.
So Tom, I think while we have you in the hot seat here, I want to hear about your extravaganza or your week that you had at the cabin that we built. I think that's a great story of trapping because we haven't really covered much of your trapping skills. But tell everybody a little bit about this cabin we got going on and your week-long stay at the old homestead.
Boy. So this would have been December of
September
2018, I believe. And
Yeah, that sounds right.
First year the cabin was up, correct?
absolutely. Yeah. And boy, I don't remember what the who knows offhand the dimensions?
12 by 16.
12 by
That's it.
16.
Yep.
12
Sorry, I was trying to swallow my beer.
so 12 by 16.
Got you a little excited there.
That equals, some square feet. And we have these.
Well, run them through when you walk in the door.
That's
Take
quick
them to the
maths.
kitchen, the dining room, bedroom, around to the bathroom. Give them like a full tour, if you will.
Okay, so you walk up onto our nice front porch, open the door. Immediately to the right, we have our wood stove.
Well, when you walk in, are you just standing on like plywood or dirt floor or something?
Plywood. No. This baby has got tile floors in the mudroom.
Like the
Grouted
snap,
and
like
everything.
the snapping? No,
No,
real tiles.
real
Wow.
tile.
You guys went all out.
Courtesy of Frank's dad.
Yeah, he donated a lot for that.
Yep. So,
So is that like just the foyer and then it just goes to dirt after that?
no. After that, we have solid hardwood oak,
White oak.
white oak wood floors, planed by your host, Frank Myers himself,
Mm-hmm.
stained by your other host, Nick himself.
And Hank helped me a lot on that.
Our Bassettown Hank, yeah, he's quite the worker.
Whitecat Outdoors mascot. It's weird that our mascot's a dog, but, that's what happens.
He is what he is.
I was gonna say most mascots are creature-like. They're not people.
Yeah, but, we're white cat. You would think cat, but we
A
have
bobcat.
Cat, bobcat, a white. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
but
know.
I don't really want to have.
But we
a
have
pet
Hank.
cat.
I don't
who's a
think
dog.
I don't think Hank knows he's a dog.
I don't
Maybe
think,
he identifies as a cat.
You
He
never
might.
know.
I don't think
2020.
Hank really knows what's going on, but
There's-
we
his-
love him.
As my dad would say, his elevator doesn't quite reach the top floor.
Hank's a smart guy.
Anyway, so you got our foyer with our fireplace, and that goes right into the kitchen. Kitchen is actually on top of the fireplace. That's where we do all of our cooking, and our
Delicious cuisine that we prepare on that. by the
absolutely.
way.
I mean, we're talking tenderloin stew, heart stew, canned soup, you name it.
That's
I
about
think
it.
we've like reheated some pizza or chicken wings from the bar up there.
Excellent cuisine. Then we got our dining room, which is it was
It's
like
an old
a
spool.
rope spool.
Yeah.
That's our table. You just flip it up on end. We got our chairs. Then behind that, we have our bedroom where we just push the table closer to the door, make a little extra room, unfold the cots,
And, that's
you're
where the
good to
magic
go.
happens.
But all this wood was basically donated. We had to buy, a couple 2x4s.
I wouldn't.
and-
It was donated, but it wasn't without work.
Yeah, so my grandpa had this, it was the old pavilion out
For his
behind his
cows.
house. It was like a shelter to keep his cows and horses out of the harsh weather and whatnot. And I guess he got tired of looking at it out his back window, and he said, if you guys tear all that down, you can have all the wood for it. So, perfect. We'll get right on it. Well, my granddad, he decided he was going to, help out, and he decided he was going to take all the walls off the
He's
very first day.
he's the type of guy that tells you that he'll help you do something, and you tell him that you'll meet him at 6:00 the next day. So you come at 5:30 the next day, thinking you'll be early, and he's pretty much done with it. So
Yeah, he does-
He likes
he's-
to get on top of
No
things.
messing around. But he decided he was going to take all the walls off this, which was basically all the support, and then send us up there on the roof to take all the plywood and shingles and everything off.
Mid-July, so it was in the 90s after work every day.
Yeah, and it was a little rickety. Stiff wind would come through, and you'd shift quite a bit with them posts swaying in the wind. But we got all the wood down, and my Uncle Norm, who was on the Bait Buddy podcast,
Check out Norm Myers and Uncle Norm's Bait Buddy on Facebook. Get yourself some Bait Buddy as the warmer weathers come in. Get out there fishing with Uncle Norm's Bait Buddy.
he donated some plywood, and Frank's dad donated his time and knowledge, and boy, I don't know how many spools and nails, and
Yeah.
a lot because I'd never really worked a nail gun before, so I was missing quite a few times. But anyway, it was me, Frank, his dad, Nick, and our dad went up there for several weekends in a row putting this bad boy together. And that's the official Whitecat Outdoors headquarters out of...
You mentioned like the foyer and the stove and the kitchen, and what's your bathroom like? You got like a master bath or what?
Yeah,
what do you got
I
going
would
on?
consider it a master bath.
Well, it's a half bath. There's no shower.
It's a half master.
Yeah, because
half master bath. Perfect.
so there's no plumbing or electricity or that kind of thing, but our light system is just battery powered lights screwed up to the
LED,
ceiling. LED
puck lights.
Yep. But our bathroom, it's out back. We got a little trail.
Way away from where you can see it.
Yeah, Nick had this great idea in the middle of summer that he was going to put the bathroom in. And with all the leaves, you couldn't see it from camp. Well, come fall, when
you use it the most.
Yeah, when we're up there every weekend deer hunting and all the leaves are gone, it's like maybe 30 yards behind the cabin. So, plain sight. Luckily, there's not a window facing that direction. But if you're outside, you can see it clear as day.
Yeah, but I spent a lot of time. I even tiled the bathroom.
Yep. Bathroom's got tile floor. It's the toilet is a hole dug in the ground.
I dug that myself.
Yeah, he really went all out digging in about 2 feet deep.
The soil was getting pretty hard, and beer was on my mind. That was towards the end of the day. That project was.
Yeah. So and then there's a nice wooden box with a hole in the top of that and a toilet seat that you sit on. I mean, state of the art. If I don't know, like
Cleaning lady comes by usually once or twice a week, gets that all cleaned up, ready for the next group to come through.
if you're on it would probably get a 5-star Yelp review if it was like a bed and breakfast type deal.
Airbnb.
Yeah, it'd probably get 5 stars.
We should get an inspector out there to see if we can get it registered for the Airbnb website.
Yeah, it'd be perfect because also
Peek and
you
peek
have a
is
cabin
right
right
there.
on the slopes, pretty much. That's my selling point every time somebody asks me about the cabin. You can see the slopes from the cabin, and that usually gets people pretty fired up.
Oh,
Yeah.
So this place is just
Which
phenomenal.
that is true. You can see the slopes from the cabin.
No, all jokes aside, for what we have, it's a great little cabin. Keep you out of the harsh weather, and
It's
you
a
get a-
glorified tent to give.
It's
the
more than a glorified
listeners.
tent. Okay.
That's basically. There's no power, no nothing. It's insulated. It's shingled.
we got
It's
working
really
windows.
nice.
Yeah, now we have working windows after I almost lost my thumb. And we had one window bust mid-January, which that was an interesting story. So my grandpa donated some windows to the cabin, and the retention spring, I guess, I don't even know if that's a word.
I think it's just tension spring.
Tension spring.
No re.
Yeah.
There's a spring.
There's a spring that, keeps the window
rotary
up when you
or-
open it. Well, those were shot. But anyway, so I had put everybody on high alert. Don't use the windows unless you know how you're using them, especially my buddy Trevor. And so nobody was touching these windows. Well,
Nick, whose dumbass touched the window first?
that'd be me. Mid-evening. Actually, no, probably mid-morning by the time I got up there.
It was probably about 2-3 in the morning.
2-3 in the morning. I got a little toasty because the stove keeps it nice and warm in there. And I decided
About 90 degrees.
I was going to open up the window and push the window up, or no, open the window. So I had to drop the top down. Well, I lost control of it at 2 in the morning and caught my thumb. We'll find out later it was my thumb that I caught in between the two windows. And it's an aluminum window. It's pretty stout. And I was complaining about
I think the window's glass, but I think the frame
frame, yeah.
around the window's aluminum.
Yeah, everybody.
I
they
see
knew
what
what
I
I meant.
did.
Aluminum's not very see-through. It'd make a
gotta be
very
very-
bad
very
window.
thin.
Is that opaque?
Wow, big words.
Go beat
No,
papaya.
so I think I was complaining about my pinky
banana.
that I cut up. Is that correct? I can't remember. I was
Yes,
complaining
it
about
was
one of
your
my
pinky.
fingers that really hurt. We wake up the next morning and my thumb is just covered in blood. My shirt's covered in blood. My sleeping bag but my pinky's fine. Apparently it was my thumb that I caught in there.
Were there any beers involved in that?
None.
None.
it was all
absolutely
whiskey.
Oh.
Dry cabin. No beer up there.
Yeah, whiskey only. But I just, first thing out of Trevor's mouth, hey, make sure you know what you're doing if you're going to touch those windows. It's like, perfect. So I kind of ate my words there. But now that little story's out of the way, Tommy, back to you on your stay at the cabin.
So that's the cabin in a nutshell. And I decided over winter break that I was going to go up there on this little trapping expo. We got fox, coyotes, beavers, raccoons, muskrats.
Fishers.
Fishers.
Not a coon. They were jet black.
Jet black, not a coon. That's coming from our Amish neighbor. But anyway, I decided I was going to go up there and spend a week trapping over winter break. So, boy, I ran like a dozen fox and coyote traps, 5 or 10 raccoon traps, half a dozen beaver traps, and day one, I caught a big old, probably 52-pound beaver out of our beaver swamp. I caught a muskrat, and I caught a raccoon. And that was a pretty good first day.
Now, so I heard you emphasize that there was a beaver swamp. The muskrats, is that a separate muskrat swamp, or were they intruding on the beaver swamp?
They were intruding the beaver swamp, believe it or not.
You'd think they have a better perimeter set up so that they.
You'd think the muskrats would, ask permission before they just intrude on some beaver.
You would think, but they don't. They're careless
Those
little
rats
buggers.
just take the beaver whenever they want it.
I tell ya. But, so that was day one. And I'm like, heck yeah, we're getting in it. And day two, we got about 1.5 feet of snow. And from there on out, it pretty much just kept snowing and snowing and snowing. And
One day it started raining.
It didn't quit for 4 months.
Sometimes it felt like it was raining coming up.
But I caught one more beaver that week, but I mean I was fighting the snow the whole time, and I was up at the cabin for a full week. Pretty much, well, I had a couple visitors. My buddy Ben and Jordan showed up one time, and Nick and Frank showed up for the final weekend. And actually, backtrack midweek, I was going into town to get more supplies as far as food and whatnot. Go out to the old S10, turn the key, nothing. I'm like,
Well, and it wasn't. Sorry, I was not at the mic. Sorry, Brad. So, you said that you went to start up your truck. Now, it had been snowing and snowing and snowing. Were you parked at the driveway, or where exactly did you have the S10?
on the road, yeah.
So, did it get plowed in, Tom?
Yeah. There were a lot of plow trucks on by. And actually, I was up there trying to jumpstart the thing because I didn't know what was wrong with it.
Did you ask the Amish neighbors if they would bring their horse out to jumpstart it?
No, I didn't. But the plow guy came up and told me I had to move my truck. I said, well, the thing is, it won't start. They said, well, if somebody hits it, then it's not our fault. I'm like, well, there's no parking sign, so I'm legally parked on the side of the road. But anyway, he was not pleased. And so that was a whole deal. So I called my brother and my dad, and they came up with the generator, and we tried getting her going, and that didn't work. So AAA came the next day. So then I was without a vehicle. And so I was really isolated to just the cabin, the 12 by 16 with fireplace, cot, and that was it. But I was pretty busy most of the days because I brought my 22. And red squirrel season's year-round up in the great state of New York. So when I wasn't trapping, I was red squirrel hunting, and that was a good time. And finally, Nick and Frank came up and rescued me after a long week of fur bearing. I think Frank set some weasel traps, but they were unsuccessful.
Yeah, they didn't quite pan out.
But
Almost had a fisher in one, but a
They're
weasel trap does not.
ermine traps.
Thank you.
but
Depends on the time of year.
What time of year was it?
heart of winter.
Ermine season.
It was ermine season.
So he actually set ermine traps, not weasel traps.
Yeah.
But so up there, as far as trapping goes, like beaver trapping is out of this world. There's this beaver pond that's hasn't been touched for at least 30 years. So the beavers have, quite the establishment set up there. You got a pretty nice home. And they were pretty well uneducated as far as trapping goes until recently. And me and my brother started trapping there, and actually my dad too. And we've had some fantastic success. Actually, if you go under Instagram at Whitecat Outdoors, our main profile picture is me and the boys, Nick and Frank, holding a beaver that I caught on that week-long trapping
I forgot
expo.
that was from that weekend.
Yeah.
That was the start of Whitecat, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the first
that
time.
weekend we came up there.
Yeah.
That was the start of Whitecat because we posed for that picture laying in the, or not, we didn't pose laying there, but after we took the picture, we came back and said, let's make Whitecat official. So that Tom's Trapping Expo
is
the
what made
reason
it all happen.
he's the reason we're sitting here right now, and that's why Tom has the first host hot seat.
Yeah, believe it or not. Yeah, I mean, it was a thought. It was more of like a little joke type deal before that, but then that's when we got official with our Instagram page. I remember laying on our cots and following. We'd look at like all the big names like Real Tree and stuff, give them a follow. You know, all the big names that have, you know, thousands and thousands of followers. We started following them, and it's just been a growing process ever since. It's been quite the learning curve, but it's been real. But
It's been real.
real. But recently, staying on track with, actually, I got a lot of stuff going on in my mind right now as far as like
Well, this is all about you, Tom. Just let it
stories
all
I
out.
want to cover, because this
Just tell us how you feel.
this is wild stuff here, guys.
Tom,
This-
just tell us who you are.
Yeah, Tom, why don't
Lay
you
on the
quit,
couch
quit.
and talk about your feelings.
Yeah. Well, if we
So,
can lay down.
my first
Tom,
buck.
tell us.
Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna
You
go.
don't have to explain with your hands. The listeners can't see it.
Yeah, but when they have when you have the camera up, they're gonna want to see. So, we're gonna talk about some firsts. My first buck. I know I gave you a little rundown, but we're gonna give you the story. So, 10 years old, mentor rifle season, out there with my dad on my Uncle John's farm. Get up there bright and early. Actually, it was still dark when we got on stand. And
Dark and early.
get on stand with my dad, and we're hunting a stand they nicknamed the coon stand because there was this raccoon that
I named it.
No, good one.
I'm just nailing the puns tonight.
Yeah, they named this stand the coon stand because there's this raccoon that frequently lived in this tree stand, and he'd occasionally come give you a visit. He never caused no harm. He'd just look at you and then climb back up on top of the roof and take his nap for the day. So I'm up there with my dad, and first light we had a group of, I think, 5 doe come through, and when you're a mentor, you can't shoot does, it's buck only. And so that was first light, and it was kind of slow until about, I think it was probably right around noon when I saw this doe followed by this buck. And I see this buck, and I'm like, Dad, there's a buck coming. And he's like, where? And I pointed at it, and I'm all excited. I pull my gun up, and my dad's looking at him, and he's probably 45 yards away. And my dad goes, I don't think you want him. And I said, no.
Who are you to say what I want to kill right now?
I said, no, Dad, I think I do want him. And he thought in his mind, he's like, who am I to tell a 10-year-old kid what he can and can't shoot? So my dad gave me the green light. And by this point, he had come into about 10 yards. And I was using this, I think it's a Winchester Model 7 243. It's actually the same 243 that my dad used when he shot his first buck. We just put that connection together the other day. But so he's about 10 yards, and I put the squeeze on him.
You're telling me this buck came out about 10 yards and you just friggin' smoked
I
him.
freaking smoked you.
But
That is one of the best little kid hunting videos that have ever surfaced on Facebook.
But this buck, I squeezed the trigger just like my dad and grandpa taught me. Don't jerk it, just squeeze the trigger. And
You never jerk it.
no, never in the tree stand. And this buck takes off running like a bat out of hell. And I'm in my 10-year-old mind thinking, crap, I missed him. He should have dropped
Just like
right
the,
there.
just like
in the shows. Yeah. Well, he makes about a 30-yard loop and turns around, so now his other side is facing me, and I saw a big patch of red right behind his front shoulder, and I knew he wasn't going far, and he tumbled down right there. I watched him drop. And so I'm all excited, and we give him about 20 minutes to expire, and me and my dad go down there, and he showed me, he said, Tom, I'm going to show you this one time, and after that it's on you. Showed me how to gut the deer. And I'm through the roof excited, just shaking. All I want to do is take pictures and tell everybody about it. But my dad wants to get back in the tree stand. So we get back in the tree stand. It's probably 1 o'clock at this point. And I'm sitting there, and now it's my dad's turn to hunt. And I got his binoculars, and they are locked on my deer just laying there, making sure nothing happens to
Don't
it.
want him getting up and going somewhere.
No. Like every 45 seconds, I'm
The
pulling
wind
the
blows in the
binoculars.
hairs, and Tom's flipping the safety off.
I'm making sure this gutted deer is not going anywhere. And after
This
about
is the first I've heard this, actually.
After about an hour and a half of that, my dad realized that I wanted no part of being in the woods anymore. So we climb down, go to my uncle's garage, and get the four-wheeler, and we throw it on there and get it up to the garage and wait for everyone else to get back so I can brag and tell my hunting stories. And we brought it to my uncle's garage, my Uncle Mark's garage, and did all the processing. He did all the deer processing for,
Processed a lot of deer in his day.
yeah. So I was on cloud nine telling my deer story over and over and over, and I couldn't have been happier.
You're still happy. You're telling it 10, 15 years later, and you're still happy about
12
it.
years later.
That's
Right
in
in the
between
middle.
10 and 15. I nailed it.
Yep. So that was my first buck on my Uncle John's property. And my first turkey came, I think, 2 years later, maybe.
Well, you passed up a lot of birds trying to go for like a 14-inch long beard for your first gobbler.
Yeah, I don't know why I had this mentality that I wanted my first gobbler to be a long beard. And I passed up, I couldn't tell you how many birds. I passed up, jakes with 5-6 inch beards. I passed, my biggest regret is I passed up a bearded hen. And
Yeah, that was pretty foolish of you.
yeah, well, so this bearded hen was feeding right in front of me and my decoys. And there was a big group of 3 toms that were like 60 yards out. And I really wanted one of these big toms.
You smoked the hen, dude.
Well,
Bearded hen. What are you doing?
yeah, well, this one, I'm not kidding you, this gobbler, when he was feeding, his beard was dragging on the ground. He probably had like a 12-inch beard. It was...
That's nothing compared to... How many have you seen since then with beards that long?
Gobblers?
Yeah.
Like 3.
And how many bearded hens have you seen since then?
More than that.
I don't believe you.
I've seen a lot of bearded hens in my day, believe it or not.
How many sitting in the woods? Because I've been with you when we had one bearded hen that was frequenting up by Climber, but we never saw it when we weren't in the pickup truck.
Me and
No.
Tom had one up in at Morrison one day.
Yeah, and there was that one that I saw that a couple times at Morrison.
Okay,
Actually,
so that's only one. That one doesn't count every time you see it.
If you saw it in 2 different times, you really can't confirm that it was the same bird.
True.
I don't know. Maybe she had some identifying marks or tattoos or
Yeah,
something.
she never got close
Prison
enough to tell.
tats.
Yeah,
Those will give a turkey away every time.
absolutely.
But
A lot of bearded girls in prison.
That is true.
so, there's that one. There's one frequenting behind our house. My grandpa's the turkey population down there has kind of gone down a little bit, but he used to always have a couple back there. So I've seen a handful of them. But first gobbler, I had got tired of passing up all these birds, and I'm with my grandpa, and he's probably the best turkey caller that I know of. And we're at my Uncle John's, and first light, we're calling in this big old gobbler, and he's out there about 80 yards, full strut, full fan. Like he's gobbling, like I can feel it in my chest. Actually, I didn't throw up. I was past the throwing up phase at this point.
You grew out of that.
Hey, we've grown out of this.
But, as turkey hunting goes, we got intercepted by a hen, that whole deal.
Away she goes.
Never experienced that in my life.
Well,
Did
you
she
haven't
have a
spent enough
beard?
time in the turkey woods then, Nick.
I've got a few turkeys in my turkey time.
And you've never been intercepted by a hen?
No.
Not buying it. Not for a second.
Okay, I have.
Yep.
Uh,
I've been with you
maybe
multiple
that one
It
time.
happened one time.
It's happened a lot.
So we get intercepted by this hen, and it's whatever. And that ordeal lasted us till about 8 o'clock. And we were walking around, calling. And as, turkeys do, they usually shut up from, 8 o'clock till 10 o'clock. You got that little lull when they get henned up and they don't want anything to do with you and that deal. But then the old hens, they go back to their nest and the gobblers are back on the prowl around 10 o'clock. And it was probably right around 10 o'clock we heard this gobble off in the distance. And my grandpa, he said, all right, we're going to set up right here, tuck up against this tree, and we're going to see if we can't call these birds in. So he's calling, and they're coming in on a string, just perfect. And they're coming down this hill. I can see there's 2 gobblers gobbling their heads off. Come down the hill, cross
So
over.
you didn't even have to shoot them at that point because their heads were already off.
Yeah, believe it. Yeah. But they come down, cross the creek, over the hill. They're about 25 yards. My grandpa gives me the green light, and I put the old squeeze on with the old 835 Mossberg pump shotgun.
Now,
And-
before you get any further along with this, do you want to talk about, maybe the shot you use, the shells you're using for turkeys?
Yeah, I use 3.5-inch turkey loads
Why do you use 3.5s?
because they don't make 4-inch shells.
Good answer.
Very fair.
So this bird comes down about 25 yards, puts a squeeze on him, and he starts flopping like a fish out of the water. The other turkey goes running back up the hill.
You sounded like you were coming from up north with turkey.
Turkey.
The way you literally, like you sounded like you came out
Go
of
park
Maine.
the car.
I'm
Park the
sorry.
car. Sorry, I shot your turkey.
But then, believe it or not, I just made this connection in my head. The gun I used, that Mossberg 835, is the same gun my dad used to shoot his first gobbler. So that's pretty wild. We shot our first buck with the same gun, and we shot our first gobbler with the same gun. And I shot my first buck on the same property. I shot my first turkey, which is pretty cool because my dad just purchased that property from my uncle. So the property that
Like a whole circle. Nick knows where I'm going with this.
No corners.
No corners.
So the property I got my first gobbler and my first buck on, which is I think that's like the 2 biggest stepping stones for me hunting.
I think that's like the biggest memory for anybody.
Yeah, your first buck and your first turkey.
Yeah, when it comes to hunting.
So that property is going to be around for a long time, which I think is pretty cool because I'd like to take my kids hunting there, given the fact that I have kids that want to hunt at some point. But Luke, what are you doing?
Who said you could smoke in the house?
Well, you guys told me last time, but I just figured it'd be all right this time.
So are we having a smoke break? Is that what's happening?
I think it's
Let's
about
take
time
little
for a
Tom,
smoke
why
break.
don't you lead us into the smoke break?
All right, I'll take us into a smoke break, and we're going to talk about my favorite treat, smoked armadillo eggs. And I like to do them with
And boy, those are good. I've had them.
venison burger. And you can do beef, it don't matter. But you get some venison burger sausage. I like to use like some sweet Italian grind.
Venison burger sausage. I've never heard of that. What exactly is that?
Venison grind.
Venison
or
grind.
seasoned.
You can
or
use
Italian.
it just straight up
Seasoned
burger.
from Italy and then
or
sent back.
if you want to season it, that's fine too. However you want your meat. Just make sure it's ground red
You
meat.
do your meat the way you like your meat.
Yeah, no one knows your meat
prepared.
better than yourself. So you do the meat as long as it's ground red meat, you're good to go. So what you're gonna want to do is take your ground and put it aside because we're not there yet.
That comes later.
Start hammering on it. Tell them all about it. All right, forget what I told you.
You
Once
want-
you've gotten the idea that you're going to use venison, throw it to the side because we're not there yet.
You're gonna want to take some peppers, and I prefer like a
Use
sweet.
Japalinos.
We tried that one time, and when you smoke a jalapeno pepper, it makes it like
What
1,000 times
What kind of
hotter.
pepper is that?
Jalapeno.
Japalino?
Jalapeno. When you smoke them babies, they get like wicked hot. So
It's like Wicked Doc down there.
I prefer like banana pepper or something that's got a little less kick to it. What you're gonna want to do is cut the top off that bad boy and take a butter knife or something and scoop out all the innards and seeds and everything. Throw them in the garbage. You don't need them. And you're going to want to stuff them with cream cheese. And
I'm definitely on
Whoa.
board with that.
yeah. So you're going to take this cream cheese stuffed pepper and you're going to wrap it in this venison grind.
The stuff
So-
that you
so
threw
you
to the
get-
side.
yeah. Get it
the
back.
stuff that you took
Bring it
away,
back.
you're bringing it back,
So
and
you
you're
don't
going to
really-
wrap it
So you
around
gotta
this
just like,
pepper.
just like kind of pack it all the way around this pepper.
Yep.
Like
So it's like a
how thick? How much
like-
meat are you using?
Everybody's meat's different, but however thick you like it.
no, just like a probably I don't know, quarter to a half inch depending
About
on.
as far as Tom's holding his fingers apart.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I'm just wondering, so you don't use too much or too little in the
no,
pepper.
you just
doesn't
want to
get
cover the
cooked or-
pepper.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just
Yeah, just not
enough
to-
to cover the pepper.
Yeah, just so like the pepper's not.
Peter's
poking through
pepper's
anything.
covered. It's safe for the smoker.
Yep. So pack it around there. You got your nice meatball with a pepper in the middle, and you're going to crank your smoker up to about 250 degrees, and you're going to put those bad boys in there.
What do you use in, or what do you prefer? Obviously, everybody's got their own preference on their own wood, but
Well,
what wood do you like?
Well, it really depends because if you want like a nice mild, sweet, smoky flavor with not a lot of smoke, I'll use like apple. But if I want, like a real,
Burnt charcoal taste. You're gonna go with like a mesquite. Is that what you're going at?
I mean, you're not gonna get a burnt charcoal taste, but there's definitely gonna be like
A lot of
a
smoke.
lot of smoke. And
do you ever use pine like I like to use with my carp? Do you ever try that one?
no, I'm sure it'd be good.
Does Bradley make pine pucks?
I don't know. I should write a letter.
Look it up and send us an email or comment on a video and let us know if you ever tried the pine out.
No. So basically, what you're gonna do is actually take you back a little bit. What I do is I make a burger, like regular quarter-pound burger, put the pepper right on the burger, and then fold the edges around. That's how I like to do it.
Alright,
Just mush
that's
it
good,
back
yeah.
together.
Yep. So that's how I like to make my armadillo eggs. And
Mash it back together.
put it in the smoker at 250 degrees. You can use apple if you like, mild smoke, mesquite if you like heavy smoke, or I've gone every other, like apple, mesquite to get like
Get the best of both
And then
worlds.
back to apple.
yep,
and
and
mesquite.
so on. And you're gonna want to put that in there for
Starting at the end.
about 2 hours or until your meat reaches 160 degrees. Pull them out, let them cool down a little bit, and put them right on the table, and they'll be gone. They're actually big enough you can have them as damn near a meal.
Yeah, you could add, a
Yeah, they're
side
basically the
dish to
size
it.
of a good burger.
Like you
Well,
said,
like Tom
you
said,
take a
wrap their
full
burger.
burger and wrap it around it. That's a lot of meat right
Yeah,
there.
so you take your cream cheese stuffed pepper, wrap it in a burger, put it in the smoker at 250 for 2 hours or until it reaches 160 degrees. Take it out, and you got yourself some armadillo eggs that are fantastic. They're delicious.
There you have it.
Thank you
Armadillo
for
eggs.
this
Thanks,
week's
Tom.
smoke break, Tom.
Yeah, anytime.
And before we get back into your stories of your firsts and other big buck stories, we're going to go to the listeners here. A couple of listeners came in and had some questions for you. So we're going to go through that. We sent out on Instagram and Facebook that Tommy the Cat was in the hot seat tonight. So our first listener that chimed in is No Schmidt 101 from Instagram. And you know what he wants to know is, Tommy, what is the best way to sip on Jaeger?
Well, Nolan, I'll tell you. The best way to sip on Jaeger is ice cold.
And keep it to yourself because it's disgusting.
No, you're going to share it with everybody around.
So you're saying bigger the bottle, the better?
Absolutely, yeah. What I like to do is if I'm at a hotel in Florida, it's spring break,
That sounds very specific. Has this happened before?
I like to keep my bottle of Jaeger in the freezer, and I'll go to every room where I know my baseball buddies are staying at, and I'll bring them back to my room, and I'll tell them, hey, we got ice cold Jaeger, and we'll all go back to my room, and we'll each do a rip of ice cold Jaeger. So, Nolan, the best way to sip Jaeger, hands down, ice cold out of your spring break room down in Florida.
That's perfect. I actually hate Jaeger.
It's delicious. Actually,
Very few people actually do like it.
right now, just for you, Nolan, I'm gonna take a rip of
A long
ice cold
Yeah.
Jaeger, just
Long
for you,
pull.
buddy.
Here we go. 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000.
pull. Oh man.
5 1. Wow, he did a 5-second rip for you, Nolan.
That is borderline long pull.
His face didn't really look like he liked it as much as he was saying it how good it was.
Oh, it's good. It's really. We might as well. Well, I better chase it with some Jenny beer.
That good, huh?
Stand by.
Yeah, that's good Jaeger.
All right. So, second question is from our good buddy Jimmy Corral.
Getting
He's-
us back on the hunting
yeah.
topic.
Jimmy Corral is a good friend of ours, big time hunter, and also the league commissioner for our softball league. So, pretty good buddies with Jimmy. We've grown
Go
closer
Engine
over the
House
years.
39.
Thank you.
Woo!
So, Tom, Jimmy asks, he's curious to hear your thoughts on the regards of the home range of a mature whitetail in Erie County, which is where we're based out of. Specifically, their summer range, but feel free, if you'd like, to talk about rut and winter ranges. Now, I know you usually get your bucks pretty early, so I don't know how much experience you have in that, but let us know. Let's start with summertime, and what would you say is their range?
Great question, Jimmy. So,
What a terrific audience.
from my
You
experience,
guys have matching mustaches, don't you?
yeah, we do. We both support a solid mustache, and I mean, I think it's pretty great. I love growing a mustache. It's a lot of fun.
Not everybody can.
No, and so if you can grow a mustache, you should
Well,
because
most of the people that can
I
don't.
only
They
rock
shave it.
one for archery season, and man, did it look nice.
But back to the home range of mature whitetail. I'm going to talk about one specific buck. And it was this beautiful 8-point. He was 3.5, 4.5 years old, which I think in, northwestern Pennsylvania, that would be
That's a
considered
mature one.
That's
Whitetail.
about as old as you're gonna find a whitetail in this area.
So I had pictures of this buck on a piece of property that I hunt on 99 in South Hill.
Tell them everything.
Well, I don't
You want
hunt
longs and lats?
Yeah. And I was regularly getting pictures of that buck. And a guy down the road, 4 or 5 miles up South Hill, was also getting pictures of the same exact buck.
During the summertime, you said?
During the summertime, yeah. And through spotting, I've seen, bucks there was this one buck that I was spotting. This was a couple summers ago. This was the only non-typical buck I've ever spotted. And I don't know, Nick, were you with me?
No, I never go spotting when you go spotting.
Well, I didn't know if you were there this specific
I
time.
don't think I've ever spotted without you.
Yeah, we do a lot of spotting in the summer. But there was this buck where he just had kickers galore coming off of him.
It was a really cool buck, especially in this area because I've never seen anything like it.
And we saw him religiously in the same field, pretty much the same spot every time we would go. And we would go 3-4 nights a week. So I think
where you're going with this is it sounds like each buck kind of its personality really like. But as a generalization, do you have like an idea of?
as a generalization, I would say about a 5-mile radius throughout the summer months. I've seen a lot of bucks in a field one night, and I've seen them
On the other side of the block.
on the other side of the block, one of which is only a
mile.
couple hundred yards. Yeah. So, but I've also seen them 5 miles apart. So I think giving a specific answer as to a buck will travel 5 miles is
It's pretty tough.
it's a little difficult. I think a lot of it depends on the deer itself, because I know
Its maturity level has a lot to do with it too, I think.
the
But
older a buck gets, the smaller its home range will be, the less it will travel. I do know that. But because a little buck, they're being bounced
Pushed
off.
out.
They're getting kicked
They're
off
getting kicked out of
properties,
blocks.
left and
But
right.
when a big mature buck, when he has 300 acres that he is the top buck, he doesn't have to leave. If he has food, water, and bedding, he doesn't have to leave that.
what about does?
Well, yeah, those two. But
It's the most important part of this equation.
as a generalization, I would say a 5-mile radius is a good ballpark of what a buck will travel in the summer months. which really isn't that far. You'll take a buck, a couple hours, just mosey.
Yeah, if they're just walking, they can cover a ton of ground. Like we were talking earlier about the big buck that I killed a few years ago. I know a guy, I didn't know at the time when I killed the deer, but I found out later he had pictures of this deer over 2 miles away from where I killed it, not just a few days before. So in just that couple of days, it traveled a couple of miles to get to where I killed him. And we had never had pictures of that buck or anything. And that was like pre-rut. It wasn't, heating up really. It was, starting to get later in October. So it wasn't, full bore yet. But that buck traveled a couple of miles and, just a couple of days.
Well, same thing with Soboleski's big buck killed up on Greenlee. We had pictures of him where we were at, and several farms over across the block. Country block's pretty big, and they were getting sheds over there. They never got pictures, but they had the sheds over there, and we had pictures up on our side. So it definitely
that's a couple miles.
That's what I mean. So I think you're probably pretty accurate with the 5 mile radius.
But that's when they're on their summer patterns, and they're doing pretty much the same thing every day, without any pressure. It's also tough in Erie County because the hunting pressure. They could get bumped out of a block every single day because the hunting population is so dense.
Well, we're talking summer still right now, to be fair.
Right, but
To be fair.
But I was gonna get into, he talked about the rut in the winter.
Yeah, he wants rut and winter next.
The rut in winter, that's a totally different ballpark because when a buck's in rut, they have one thing on their mind.
What is that one thing?
Breeding. So
Some say another word, but
for podcast purposes, we're going to say breeding. Oh, the other word, mating. That's what got you.
nailed it.
Yep, that's the other word he was thinking of, mating. But yeah, that's the one thing they have on their mind. So I'm going to take you to a story. This isn't Erie County. This is Plattsburgh, New York. But New York and Pennsylvania are extremely similar in terrain and hunting pressure and population of hunters.
Density of hunters, yeah.
So hunting New York is very similar to hunting Pennsylvania. And up at our farm, the Morrison, it's not our farm, but we have permission to hunt it.
It's a family farm. Our grandfather and his buddy bought it back in the 80s.
Nick, John Eves, and his brother Ed Eves were all hunting.
Do you want me to give the story?
Yeah, Nick,
It's only Tom's spotlight. Tom's in the
yeah,
hot seat, but we'll just
he's
pass it
giving
over
me
to
a story
you.
that I was a part of.
Go ahead, Nick, go ahead.
So, I've been after this specific buck up at this farm this is my second season on him. If you're counting success as killing it, no success. But I've gotten closer this year, and I'm hoping to kill him next year. But anyway, there's big buck cruising where I like to hunt on this farm, and John Eves was hunting a couple.
And sorry to interrupt, but we have the privilege to hunt. It's just under 1,000 acres, and all but one of the neighbors also practice quality deer management. So we do have in New York State the opportunity to hunt mature whitetails. I think my buddy Keith shot a buck up there that was aged at 5.5.
Yeah.
So we do have the opportunity to hunt mature bucks up there. And
How old do you think John's buck was?
John's the size of that deer had to put it in, I would say 4.5. It's
4.5, 5.5. It was. I mean, it's not uncommon to get a 5.5-year-old deer, 4.5-year-old deer up on that farm.
Yeah.
Yeah, around here, unless it's a doe, like for bucks around here, that's almost unheard of.
But because PA, there's still, there's nothing wrong with meat hunters, but there's so many of them in Pennsylvania. It's really tough to have this be a place where you're going to hunt mature whitetails like that.
And like the antler restriction, the deer are getting a little bigger over
Yeah,
the
but New
past
York
years.
has no antler restriction.
Yeah.
But we're lucky enough to have an area of several thousand acres where
That is getting managed.
deer management is a priority.
Yeah, around here where we live, people have a 10-acre chunk, and like us, we only like to shoot nicer deer. We're not going to shoot the first tiny little thing that comes walking by.
I
Well,
tend
your
to shoot
neighbor
the
is.
first thing that walks
your
by.
neighbor. Yeah, Thank.
You just get lucky, Nick.
Yeah,
and
Nick gets
sometimes
lucky
the
every
first
time.
deer that walks by is a real nice buck.
Yeah, it does happen a lot. But
But,
anyway, so back
Like
to
everybody around here, has a 10-acre chunk. So like, if I have 10 acres and I only shoot, nice bucks, and then my neighbor and his neighbor, they have 10, 20-acre chunks and shoot whatever they want. It's a lot harder to manage these smaller chunks around where we live as opposed to up there where you have a couple thousand acres of you and the neighboring properties that everybody is shooting bigger deer.
Yeah. So anyway, so I've been on this buck for 2 years, and I was in one of my mobile setups down about halfway down the gully, and this was pretty damn close to peak rut when this was going on. So at this point, I'm more hunting does because where the does are going to be, that's where the bucks are going to be. But I knew that this was kind of the home turf of that buck, and John was sitting several hundred yards away from me, directly would have been west of me. I'm sitting in my tree stand, got my mobile set up. John's a couple hundred yards above me, and the guy that owns the property, Ed Eves, he's across the street. And we're all sitting, like I said, we're all sitting there peak rut, and I had seen a monster buck come by. And for me, a monster buck, I would say, is probably like 140s. I'm saying is pretty, that's impressive to me. I've never killed anything that big. I see him come bolting past me, chasing a doe, just shoots right to the bottom of the gully and out of my life. I'm pretty certain it's the buck I've been after. I was about 45 yards from him, and he was just on that doe like crazy.
Yeah, there was no turning him or stopping him or anything. He was just going.
So anyway, buck runs out of my life, head back to camp, and we're getting back to camp, and I'm pretty diligent about like checking time when I see deer, so I can.
Yeah, same here. I like to take notes.
Yeah,
I have a notebook.
exactly.
So
I take notes exactly when I'm seeing deer, so it helps me later on in the season, in future years. But anyway, so I get back to camp, and John texts me, or not texts me, he talks to me at the table, and he's like, "Man, I had a stud buck run by me, real light colored rack." And I asked him what time it was, and he's like, "Well, I was texting so and so," and so I remember the time, and then I was like, "Well, son of a gun!" Like that was within 2 minutes of when I had seen him. And then Ed shows up a couple minutes later to camp because he was hunting across the road, and he's like, "Dude, you guys are not gonna believe the buck that I watched across the road, from my stand." And so this buck covered, it's probably almost a mile between from where like me and John were sitting pretty close, but Ed was quite a ways away.
In less than 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, I mean just
That's
on
insane.
this doe, just gone. Like, it was just incredible when we put the pieces together because I mean we have good bucks up there, but it's not like you're not gonna see several 140s, so we're all pretty certain it was the same deer running by.
But also, up there, there's several different farms that we hunt up there, and we've had pictures of bucks on the Morrison farm, which is like the main farm, and we've also had pictures of, in the rut, the same buck on the Big Pond farm, which is over 5 miles away. And it's not uncommon at all to see, the same buck on those two farms. And during the rut, I think that range easily doubles is how far they will go, because so many of the bucks we take up there, we have never got on trail cam.
And that's the story with people, everywhere. You always hear people shooting a buck, and they're like, "I had no idea this thing was even on the property," and odds are it wasn't until, the rut kicked in and it just happened to be on a doe that ran over there. So
Well, on the flip side of that, how many times do you hear of a guy or even yourself that's got pictures of a slammer in the summertime, and as soon as bow season comes around, they're gone?
yeah,
So,
exactly.
I mean,
I know a lot of bucks, they will summer in one spot, and come the rut, they go to it, because in the summertime they're focused on eating and water. So if there's plenty of food and water, that's where they're going to be focused on. And come rut, they know I got to go to where the does are. So they might move several miles to a spot where they know
and
there's-
hold up,
Yeah,
in
where
the
there's-
summertime they'll cover this, square mile. And then in the rut, they'll move 3 miles away and cover that 1 square mile.
Yeah.
So they're not really covering a ton of ground when you think about it, but different times a year they will travel that far to get to where they will spend all of their time.
I think bucks, they'll summer in one spot, rut in another spot, and winter in another spot. I run
Winter's like solely they're after food.
Yeah,
And that's their only
they're
thing in their mind.
trying to get food, trying to build fat to keep them warm through the winter. But I run cameras pretty much year round, and very
Got
rarely
this whole mountain on lock.
very rarely will I have the same bucks in the summer, in the rut, and in the wintertime. Usually the bucks that I have on camera during the summer disappear, and I'll get new bucks throughout the rut. And once the rut, kind of levels off, a new patch of deer comes in for the winter. So just as a generalization, I would say 5-mile radius in the summer, 10-mile radius in the rut.
That was a lot longer of an explanation than how you drink your Jaeger.
Yeah, it's
very detailed.
That's what
Some things are short and sweet. Some things you really got to work at.
Like Jaeger.
So
Well,
I do
Jaeger,
wanna
that's a very direct.
Before we get off topic and we lose this, I want to thank Jimmy for that question. I really appreciate people chiming in and giving us something to talk about. I hope we answered that the way you wanted to. I can't. Okay. We also are doing karaoke nights on Thursday night, starring Luke Soboleski. But thank you, Jimmy, and also No Schmidt 101. Thank you for
Nolan.
giving
He's
Tom an
actually-
excuse to drink Jaeger at
He's
the
our
podcast.
he's on the bench crew, Borough Baseball. So
The bench crew. What do you elaborate, please?
So I never played baseball really competitively until college.
What are you talking about? Like you said 10 to 13, you were
All-star.
hammering the field.
Actually, no, 10 to 12. I stopped when I was 13.
You really put the grind in for those couple
Gave yourself
years.
a little extra, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but me and Nolan, we became really good buddies down in Florida because
While you're riding the bench.
yeah, just cheering the team on, and that's where all your wins come from is the bench. Really, because
Bench crew is responsible
That's why they
for
have
all
a
the wins.
specific bench coach.
yeah, you got to hype up the team, and who else is gonna yell? Hey, we need a hit
Hey,
out of you.
batter.
Come on, buddy.
Hey, batter.
Yeah, so it's that motivation coming from the bench that really helps your team do good. So me and Nolan, we had a lot of good times down there in Florida, and I appreciate the question coming in for you, buddy. And I hope to demonstrate the best way to drink Jaeger this coming spring break trip with you. That'd be great. I'd really like that.
I'm sure you're going to be able to tell how much Jaeger Tom drinks by the end of this podcast.
Yeah, you probably will be able to.
So I got to ask, Tom, you've had at least 10 years of outdoor experience in your life, or expertise, if you will. I want to hear your number one memory from the outdoors,
Boy.
if you would.
Whew. My number one memory. So
Would it be easier if I said two?
Yeah.
How about we do one hunting and one fishing?
Perfect. Okay. So
That's squared away. He's ready to rip.
fishing. We'll start with fishing because that happened first in my life. I was privileged enough to go salmon fishing in the Kenai River in Alaska. We did talk about this before.
Yeah, on the Clovicar episode.
Yeah,
With the dentist.
But yeah, let's hear it again.
I don't think we need to go into quite the detail, but
Very specific details.
That's a made-up name, man.
so
Just give us a quick rundown.
sockeye salmon fishing, flossing technique.
You know what? This is actually a perfect time for you to finish your story from the first time we talked
Right,
about this.
I was cut off my pink salmon story, and I was a little
His
upset
dog
about
salmon. He never got to finish his story. So go back, make sure you listen to Tom's story. You're going to see that it kind of gets cut off. To be continued right now.
So we're fishing the Bird Creek, crushing these pink salmon, and this is day one or day two, and we're keeping them, and like no one else is keeping them, but whatever. We're not natives. We're just out there having a good time, and we bring these pink salmon home, and come to find out, like the natives won't even feed these salmon to their dogs. Like they are the scum. It's like, I guess to compare it, it would be like eating carp. back
Whoa,
here in
whoa,
Northwest PA.
Don't be talking about carp like that.
Just cook them with Luke's recipe and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, so we were keeping these pink salmon, and we brought them back to the house, and we had quite a few beers, and we cooked up these pink salmon, and they were delicious.
Dynamite.
Dynamite to die for. Best fish you ever had, you know. Grill them with some lemon juice, little salt and pepper.
Dump some beer on them. They're delicious.
Forget about it. Talk about a 5-course meal.
Get 'em outta here.
5-star meal. 1 course, 5-star. So we're like, we're definitely keeping more of these. So we go back the next day, keep a bunch of pink salmon, freeze them, ship them home. I'm like super stoked to cook these pink salmon.
Telling everybody how delicious they are.
Yeah, so we cook these pink salmon and eat them without having
47 beers.
several beers. And yeah, I understand why the natives wouldn't feed them to their dogs because
Pretty terrible.
yeah, they're trash. Not good. Super fishy. Super like mush. Just gross. But if you want to eat them, I recommend a 12-pack beforehand, and they.
Maybe some Jaeger.
Yeah, who knows? They will be delicious.
Was there one fish on that trip that was like, wow, like this is cool?
I wouldn't say there was one specific fish.
Yeah, so to get back on topic, you know,
Yeah.
the one fishing, one hunting memory.
So
The best.
It
to be
was
specific.
it was really just, I mean, as fast as you could get your line in the water, you were hooking into a sockeye. And one specifically I remember, I had flossed a sockeye salmon in the tail, and it took me into my backing as fast as you could imagine. Like right now, you were in your backing. And it got into the rapids, and I had to, what you do is you give it your real death grip, point your rod at the fish, and pull back. And we were using 80-pound line, so like you're not going to snap your line. It's going to pop the hook right out of her. And so actually, that was very memorable. But the most memorable fish I caught was this chum salmon, and their nickname's chum salmon because they're another kind of crappy fish. Like you just chop them up and use them as chum. You don't eat them or nothing. But they're a very beautiful fish. Their color is kind of like, it's very solid through the middle of they're a silver fish with like a solid color through the middle of their body, and it kind of like it bleeds down the bottom. It's a really unique looking salmon.
Yeah, look them up if you can't like get a picture in your head of what he's talking
Yeah,
about.
it's kind of
They're
tough
beautiful.
to describe, but very, very, very pretty fish. And I caught probably a 10-pound chum salmon, and that was probably the most memorable fish I caught just because how unique the color of that specific fish is. But overall, that 9-day trip up in Alaska, salmon fishing with 2 of my buddies, Paul and Hunter, was just by far my best fishing experience. As far as hunting experiences goes, I'd say it's a toss-up between...
We'll allow it. You are the host, Hot Seats. You make your own rules. If you have 2 that it's a toss-up between...
Well, it's a toss-up between 3.
Jeez.
Okay, now you're
You know
getting
what?
out of hand.
So-
You don't make the
Pick
rules
one.
anymore.
So,
You know,
my...
honestly, we pay to post as much content as we want, so we might as well just go for it.
So, I took
true.
a week-long trip turkey hunting out in the great state of Kansas with both my brothers, Nick and Luke, my dad, and my granddad. That was awesome. A great time. We didn't kill any birds, but it was...
I didn't see any. Did you see any birds?
Yeah, I saw birds every day.
Oh, I never saw any.
Yeah, well,
That's
but
because you were catfishing the whole time.
Yeah.
That is true. I did nail some catfish. Spent a
so
lot
there's
more time.
that, and I think you kind of just got to bundle up weekends at the Whitecat Outdoors headquarters, along with weekends at the Morrison Farm. Like you can't beat either one of them. The
Hunting camp's a special thing.
Yeah, and that's not even specifically for the hunting. That's just
yeah,
the people
it's
that you're
it's
with.
the group it's the group of guys that you're up there with, and the group of guys
Just a
that
bunch of guys being dudes.
bros being dudes. Couldn't have said it better myself. But
You did correct him though. So
Yeah, I said yeah.
Just
But
mix
we're
them,
not guys,
being
we're bros.
being dudes.
Yeah, guys being bros, being dudes.
No, hunting camp is a special thing, and I think while we're on the topic of hunting camp, I think one of my favorite things about hunting camp is that old dusty binder that sits, maybe above the fireplace or above the cabinets that is just loaded with old memories of the people that were hunting there before you were. Like
Old
I said,
Polaroid pictures
exactly.
from the 80s.
I mean, like you said, because my grandfather and his hunting buddies, they traveled the entire country hunting whitetails, muleys, sheep, turkeys, elk, like everything. And there's just so many snapped pictures that are in that album that, they're just, every picture's just got an incredible story to it. And I think that's probably one of my favorite parts about hunting camp is that binder that sits above that, probably got a little bit of dust on it, but every time you bring that down, it just, the memories just start flowing, and I just can't wait till, that old binder's filled with people our size or our age, back in the day.
Our size.
Yeah, our size.
But yeah, so weekends at Morrison Farm, weekends at the Whitecat Outdoors headquarters. It's just fantastic, and ever since I was 14 years old, which is the age
Thank you for the dramatic pause for that.
you can start gun hunting up in New York State at 14. At least that's what it was when I was 14. That was my birthday present every year.
Still is.
Yeah. My birthday
That's
is
the one thing that sucks about having a birthday during like archery season or rifle season. Your parents and your girlfriend, everybody.
Well, not all parents.
Yeah.
My dad
Ours
was in
have
full
learned.
support.
Yeah, it was
The
same with
Morrison.
my parents, but like I'm sure you've seen it with girlfriends. People always try to make plans for your birthday, and it's like, how about here's what I want for my birthday: for you to not plan anything and to just let me go hunting.
Actually, speaking of this, Hornhub just posted that meme today with
I think it's Mimi, M-E-M-E.
with
Mimi.
Pelosi ripping up the what is the
It was his speech.
his speech? Yes, it's some
State of
address.
the Union.
Yeah,
Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah,
Thank you, Nick.
Wow,
I
That
figured
was-
I'd let
that
you
was
struggle
tough.
with it for a
I was
little
gonna say,
bit.
if you knew it, you should have definitely said it earlier. But anyway,
Why would I do that?
So Hornhub posted the meme with them ripping up fall wedding invitations coming through.
Bunch of trash.
That's that is very similar on the lines of trying to plan birthday parties and festivities, if you will.
Yeah,
for
you just don't
archery
do it
hunting
in
birthdays,
October.
because the only festivities I have are being in the woods. But even Halloween night, I think that is a magical time to be in the woods. There's
Absolutely.
something, maybe, just maybe, because I killed my first archery buck on Halloween with velvet on it, by the way.
Yeah, that was wild.
We're gonna save that for somebody else's hot seat.
Probably
Is it
Nick's.
going to be your hot seat?
It probably will be.
I might tell the story in my hot
I'll
seat.
tell it right now. There we were, Morrison Farm.
We're going. We've gone off the pavement. And we're going off roading here. Tom is taking
Tom,
full
why don't
control.
you tell us your favorite hunting story?
So, so since I've been
You generalized 3 locations. We want a favorite hunting memory. 1.
favorite, well, we already told the story of my first buck, and I think that's a huge stepping stone. Other than that, best hunting memory, I would have to say,
Is it when I smoked that gobbler at 57 yards in climber?
no, that was a bunch of bullshit.
That was a really funny story, though.
Well, we'll tell you that story. I'm a decent turkey caller. I don't like to brag.
As am I.
I think I'm pretty solid. So we set up in Clymer, which is, was it 116 acres?
That'd be correct.
2 groups of guys, 4 guys, 2 groups. Turkey hunting.
How many guys?
4. And I kind of knew what these birds were doing. They were coming off the roost, coming down the hill, and coming out to this field. And I told Nick where I was going to set up. And he said, oh, perfect. I'm going to set up on top of the hill and see if they come out into this other field. Little did I know, Nick was just jerking my chain. He set up on the bottom of the hill.
No, that's not the first time or the last time Nick has done stuff like that.
No.
Yeah, but
And
see, this one didn't have any alcohol involved. This
And-
is just a miscalculation.
he totally sat right in between me and the birds.
That is a lie. you were at least 60 yards further in than I was. That's how this whole thing happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wasn't directly in
60
line.
yards when you're talking about it, that's not very
That's
far.
not very
Okay,
far.
yeah, if you take in the size of the entire Earth, 60 yards is not very far.
If you've taken the size of the property 60 yards, it's not very far.
Okay, we both know that there's only one flock of birds on the property.
So
And you sat in between.
Figured,
them
you know what,
and
I
Tom.
better
I gave
cut
myself
Tom
the
off.
best opportunity to kill a bird that day, and that is it.
So these birds are gobbling.
To my call.
No. They're on the roost, and I would call, and they would hammer back to me. And I guess Nick got a little jealous because then he started to call. And guess what?
They hammered.
No. Silence.
Man, you were just running away with this podcast on your own.
And I would call, they'd hammer. Nick would call, silence. I called this one specific gobbler off the roost. It was damn near dark still.
5:50 because I had to write it on my
5:50
tag.
in the morning. This bird said, "I'd had enough. I'm going to see what this hen's about." So he flies down, and he is.
Meanwhile, my buddy Paul was the one hunting with me, and he was supposed to be videotaping for me.
He didn't have his camera on because it was that early, but this bird was so hot and eager to come down to me that he's like, "I'm leaving now." So he comes running down the hill, and Nick's sitting right in between us. And
No, 60 yards away from being in between you.
yeah, shoots this.
57, we found out later.
Shoots aiming directly in between Tom and the birds.
No,
That is a lie. That is a total lie.
it was so you can't see my fingers here. So
Tom's drawn a picture for you.
It's a
Gobblers
triangle.
are here. Nick's here. I'm here.
All right, so for you
It's a
listeners,
triangle.
we're making basically a right angle triangle,
Yes.
and I am at the right angle.
Me and the
Tom-
gobblers are at the hypotenuse.
No, the
No,
gobblers
there's
are
no
the
hypotenuse
gobblers
at a right
no-
triangle.
Yes, there is. A gobbler.
That's
The
an
gobbler
equilateral-
is traveling.
There's no
the,
hypotenuse with an equilateral triangle.
Tom's getting geometry lessons later on tonight.
I actually took a college level geometry class.
So that's why you know all about
Yeah.
triangles.
So the turkeys
the
travel.
hypotenuse is the longest side.
Thank you, Tom. The turkeys are traveling along the hypotenuse.
Correct.
Tom is sitting at the end of the hypotenuse.
And Nick's at the right corner or the right angle.
Yes. So the birds started at the top of the hypotenuse. Tom's at the bottom of the hypotenuse, and I am at the right angle.
There you have it. This bird is coming into me on a string, literally running, like running. Beard
was, yeah.
swaying in the wind.
Oh, it was swinging.
Well, you didn't know that because it was that dark. You thought it was a Jake when you shot it.
I like to be conservative when I tell people
So-
I got one.
This
you don't
bird,
want to tell him 15-inch beard and it ends up being 9.
I
Yeah.
hear him gobble. He flies down, gobbling. I hear him. I don't hear him running, but he
I did.
gobbles and gobbles again, way closer. So I'm like, he's on his way. And I'm thinking Nick's up on top of the hill. And all of a sudden,
So you're telling me my calling was so good that you didn't know it was me at the bottom of the hill. That's what you're saying right now? Because you thought I was still up at the top of the hill.
yeah.
That's how good my calling was?
Yeah, it turns out the hen that I thought was calling was you. And you
Man, I must
were
be pretty talented.
really.
So you worked me over as I called this bird into me, is what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is you intercepted this gobbler that I called in.
Which
It just-
hens tend to do.
No, because it didn't go into you. It ran 60 yards past
57.
you. 57 yards
I'll stand
past
by
you,
that yardage.
running towards me. So this gobbler's running towards me. I'm getting all excited because he's coming in hot. And all of a sudden, boom, right like 100 yards away. I'm like, I thought he was up on top of the hill, which is like several
It
hundred
depends on
yards
what
away.
top of the hill. I mean, there's
You're
smaller
at the
knolls.
bottom of the hill.
The whole hill, yes, but like there's some smaller knolls that you could consider hills that I might have been at the top of.
Yeah, well, no. He said he was going to be on the field edge at the top of the hole.
Been
That's
so
not
long,
where
I don't even remember saying that.
he intercepted this bird that was running into me, shot it at 57 yards on the run, and I called
I
him.
freaking smoked him.
I was like, "Did you just shoot?" And I'm like, "He's like, yeah, I just."
Hell yeah, I shot.
He's like, "I just shot
Bird's
this
dead.
Jake." So I'm like, "Sweet." I mean, I wasn't really. I mean, we joke about it, but I wasn't that upset. I'm just as happy when I get a bird as when someone else gets a bird. Like, as long as someone gets the job done, I'm freaking pumped. So we're all excited. Nick's like, yeah, I just got a Jake, which was at this time the first gobbler that had been taken off the farm since we started hunting it. So me and my cousin Corey, we trek over there, and turns out this Jake had like a 10-inch beard.
It was like 9 and 7
It was a
eighths.
rope too.
It was-
Yeah,
was
and it was
thick.
like it was a freaking beer bottle. It was huge. But
I mean, I strutted that thing all over town.
yeah, we went to the tavern, or not the tavern, the diner,
Main Street
and
Diner.
showed everybody. But
Everybody's like, did you guys see that monster Tom in the bed of that truck? I'm like, yeah.
that's
this guy.
it. Called it in form. But me and Frank, we've had some wild turkey hunts.
We have had a lot of really good turkey hunts.
Frank's when we have this little deal where we go up to Morrison Farm Memorial Day weekend.
Even in Maryland, we did it.
Yeah. When it comes to turkey hunting in groups, me and Frank, we're a partner. We're a duo. And
You're a partner.
We are not partners. He works under me.
No, we hunt together, and boy, we have had some hunts. I would consider we've never. The one time I killed a bird up there, Frank was like, I'm not going.
I had to
out."
leave.
Yeah, he had
The funny thing is,
to paint the
I doubled
inside of his
down
closet
later.
or something stupid. Just dumbass excuse. Anyway, I go out, I shoot a freaking bird, and Frank could have went because he was still there when I got back to camp, and we had a celebratory beer, and then Frank ran over the birdhouse on his way out. It was the whole thing.
which we would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for those meddling kids. No, when we put the birdhouse back up, we put it on backwards. That's how we got caught.
But yeah, we've
Yeah.
had some great hunts
So,
up there together.
We
I don't know how
we've derailed again.
Yeah, way.
We have
derailed.
not. We still have not heard Tom's favorite hunting story.
Favorite hunting story: turkey hunting trip, Kansas. Both my brothers, my dad, my granddad. Boom. That's my stamp it in. Write it in pen.
That is not your write-in pen. But while you bring it up, let's just get right into it. Tommy the cat. This has been your host hot seat. Your write-it-in pen segment for tonight.
Boy, you're really throwing this on me. My write it in pen segment is gonna have to hold on.
Do you have one more story in you or what?
Yeah, I want to tell this story about the Kansas hunt.
All right.
Kansas hunt.
We've already gone over Kansas though.
Not here.
Kansas.
Well, then I'll tell about my first.
Shot
Blaze.
6 times.
I'll tell about. We've already discussed Kansas. We'll talk about my second
New York City.
favorite hunt, which is my first archery kill up at the Morrison
Did it-
farm.
Oh, your first archery kill. I thought you were talking about your first archery buck.
No,
Okay.
First archery
kill.
Morrison
Farms.
Farm.
Hit it.
First year I was able to go up to camp for my birthday. I was freaking stoked. All excited. I've been shooting my grandpa's bow that he gave to me. Parker, beautiful bow. Been shooting it. And we get up there, and I was 14 at the time. We get up there, first night, November 8th, and I'm all excited. I take a scent-free shower, go to bed at like 9
I took a
o'clock.
scent-free shower in a extremely high, what's the word? Sulfur bath.
Yeah, sulfur is a natural smell. A deer can't smell it. Well, like
Okay, if it's a natural smell, it doesn't mean they can't smell it.
they don't even worry about it. It was sulfur.
For those who don't know, the camp well doesn't get used crazy often, and it's got a very
once
high,
every month.
and it's got a very high sulfur content with no water softener. So you kind of come out smelling like a hard-boiled egg more than anything.
Deviled eggs.
Deer
are
don't know what
delicious.
hard-boiled eggs are, so you're perfectly fine.
I bet they would eat them if they knew what they
They
were.
probably would. So I take my scent-free shower, and I get into bed probably 9 o'clock, which, I don't do that.
That's freaking early for you.
Yeah, I don't do that anymore when it comes to deer hunting. I like to, party it up. So
That's also not true. I've seen you sleep before anybody at camp multiple times.
After he barks with the big dogs, though.
Yeah, he lets out a few barks. Roof, roof.
anyway, 14 years old, scent-free shower,
Oh, so that's why you weren't barking, because
Yeah.
you were only 14.
hit the hay. I get up. It's my birthday, November 9th. And my good friend Ed hooks me up with this stand, and he said, Tommy, this stand is a slam dunk. I mean, deer come through here all the time, and if you'll have an opportunity at your first archery deer. I said, perfect. That's what I'm about.
Sign me up.
Yep. So I get dropped off at the road, waltz back in there with my dad. Actually, he was taking his climber, and he went in about 100 yards further than me, and I was in what we call the dump stand. It's in the middle of the hardwoods, bunch of acorns around, and it's right on the edge. It's kind of in a transition area in between bedding, So
You gonna draw us another picture with your fingers?
Please, Tom, draw us a picture so the listeners can really get a good idea of this.
Okay, so
That's a joke. Don't actually draw a picture.
to the west, okay, you're in the stand, you're facing west, and you got a cornfield about, boy, I don't know, 300 yards. In between that cornfield and you is all thick bedding. And you're just on the outskirts of that bedding, in the hardwoods, in an oak trees all around you. So you got cornfield, bedding, hardwood oaks, you name it. Perfect setup for deer. You're going to have deer coming out of the hardwoods, going right into the bedding to bed down for the day. How can you beat it? You can't. So I see all kinds of deer in the morning, like first light, nothing close enough to shoot. And it's cold out. It's about 20 degrees, and I'm all layered up. And about 7 o'clock rolls around, and I have these does come by at 25 yards straight in front of me. And I try to draw back on one, but I was so frozen I couldn't draw my couldn't draw my bow back, and they disappear. So I'm sitting there a little bit frustrated, and as the morning continues on, I warm up a little bit. And about 11 o'clock, this group of like 6 doe comes waltzing through, and I pick out the biggest one, and at like 32 yards straight to my north, she stops, and I draw back and, tap the release. Arrow goes in, perfect right behind the front shoulder. She takes off, disappears. I hear her crash and everything. My dad watched it all happen out of his binos, and I call him. I'm all excited. He's like, all right, we're gonna give it a little bit of time. And he comes back to the bottom of my ladder about 30 minutes later, and I'm so excited I'm climbing down, I almost fall out because I'm shaking so bad.
We're going to get back into falling out of tree stands when you're done with this.
Times. Anyway, we get down, and we walked to where this doe was standing, and it was easy blood trail. I was using mechanical broadheads, like 1.5 inch cutting diameter. They did a number on her. She ran about 60 yards, followed her right to my very first archery deer. And it was a real nice mature doe off the Morrison farm. Couldn't have been more happy. And that was, besides Kansas, that was probably my favorite hunting experience.
There's definitely something special about, archery hunting in general. I think everybody at the table that hunts would agree that probably archery hunting is probably our favorite.
Yes,
Outdoor activity.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I don't know. I still, to this day, I've been hunting with a bow for over 10 years, and I have yet to even draw back on a doe. I am strictly a big buck killer.
How about that?
I don't know why. I
think I've only killed two does with my bow.
There's just something about archery season, especially during the rut, when you see a doe, in your mind you're like,
there's a buck right behind her.
She's come, and a lot of time there is, but most of the time it's just that doe walks through. But
I'm just afraid to shoot and be like super pumped and like forget to knock an arrow.
Well, that happened to you. Remember, we're not going to tell the whole story, but your archery buck, you shot that buck. You were so excited, you forgot to knock an arrow. 5 minutes later, a doe walked through in the same exact spot.
Yeah, that is true. And I was so excited. Yeah, I never even knocked an arrow. Well, that was my first archery kill and my first archery buck.
He could have doubled down, but just, I guess sometimes.
I was out of cards in that deck, I guess.
One time, I was deer hunting, and I get back to the truck, go to unload my gun, open the bolt, and turns out there's no bullets in it.
never even loaded the
I've
gun.
seen people do
Full
that
day
before.
out in the woods, and you never put your bullets in the gun.
You'll have that on these big jobs, but
Yeah, sometimes you will.
So
it happens to the best of us.
after that long course, we have finally gotten Tom's favorite hunting memory.
They're both great stories, the hunting and the fishing one. Definitely.
Yep.
But we're back to the main question. The
Fun.
write it in pen. Tom, you can't strike out on me again. This is the host hot seat with Tom Soboleski, and we need your write it in pen.
Well, I'm gonna
Right
need
now.
I'm gonna need a little help from you guys. Do you guys want like a little motive? I mean,
You can do anything.
My-
whether it's-
Basically, there.
my mind
the way
is
I wanna-
so full of great
Lots of pen
knowledge
things.
First
that I
with
could
ideas.
bestow upon you guys and the listeners. I don't know if you guys want
So this is
like
let me break it
hold
down
on,
for you.
Hold on. I don't know if you guys want like a hunting tip, a trapping tip, a fishing tip, or if you just want some motivational thing to kind of like
That's where the beauty of it.
amp you up.
It's
So like,
whatever
up to
you
you.
want, but the idea of the write it in pen is something that you really believe in, that you maybe put towards your success in anything outdoors or life in general. Like if there's something you live by that you think other people should hear about.
You think everybody should know because it makes your life that much better.
they
or-
should write it in pen.
Wet the quill and start writing.
well, that's very simple then. You got to do the work. When it comes to fishing, trapping, hunting, or
Even life.
even life, you got to do the work. So, hunting, I started out, I didn't know squat. But after hours and hours and hours in the woods, I have a notebook where I write down my encounters, what time I saw them, what the weather was like, what the wind direction was like, what the moon phase was like, everything. I write down everything about that specific hunt, what I saw, if I harvested anything, and I compare that day to day to day to figure out, what works the best. Same thing with fishing, it's what the water conditions are like, what the weather's like, how fast the water's moving, what bait you were using. You got to keep track of all that. Nothing, I guess, as far as hunting and fishing and even life comes natural. You have to apply yourself. You have to be the best that you can be if you really want to succeed. And I think that's kind of important thing for our listeners to take away. But especially, this podcast is more focused on hunting and fishing and
It's
trapping
the
and
outdoors. We bring
anything
people to the
outdoors.
table while we talk about the outdoors. Entertainment for the outdoorsman.
So, you can't just expect to go out into the woods, pick a tree that looks nice, hang a stand, and shoot a nice buck. Like it
That sounds a lot like my best buck.
yeah. Well,
You can't always do it. Some people
No,
do
I
get lucky.
agree. I have gotten lucky in the past, but
I spend
you need to put in the work. I agree, Tom.
over the summer, spotting, it's a lot of fun, but it's also, figuring out
It's
where
intel for the fall.
Yeah,
for
you're
that
not just
upcoming
going out
season.
having fun driving around with
Yeah,
your buddies.
most of the times we're spotting areas that we hunt.
Pretty much all the time we spot. It's, early on, you're spotting to see what deer made it. And then as the year progresses, start getting late summer, you start trying to track a buck that you're interested in. I think that's kind of where a lot of our season starts is, with spotting and scouting before the year. And spotting is a big part of scouting. If I know there's actually a lot of states, I didn't realize this, but listening to other podcasts, there's a lot of states that it's illegal to spot, even in the off season.
Yeah.
So Pennsylvania, we're lucky enough that is legal.
In New York.
In New York. So we can use that as a great
Tool.
scouting tool for that upcoming year. So like I said, me and Tom are out several nights a week spotting the areas, trying to figure out what's out in the area, what do we find something that we're interested in shooting.
Just the other night, it was probably a mile from our house. We saw it was this 8-point. It was one of the most bizarre 8 points I've ever seen. It was what, a 5x3,
It was a 5x3 or a 6x2, I can't remember. It was very odd.
but it was well over 20 inches wide. It was awesome to see that buck. You can't spot during rifle season, so we take rifle season off, and then as soon as rifle season's over, we start up again, just seeing what made it through the season, and just seeing that buck make it through the season was something really special because that was a mature buck that next year is going to be even better.
And I like those squirrely bucks.
Yeah,
I'm
some
not-
with a lot of character.
I mean, I definitely like shooting for an older age class, but those squirrely bucks just get me. I love those unique racks.
I think you might get that from Dad. Dad, how old's Dad? 49.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
almost 50.
Almost.
Never
50.
shot a symmetrical deer.
Never in his entire life, like even counting a spike.
He's never
been
shot a spike.
Yeah, either like that's what I'm
A
saying.
3-point
Yep, a
or-
3-point, a 5-point, a 7-point, a 9-point.
He
He
actually
shot
did-
one 8-point and it had 5 on one side, 3 on the other.
So yeah, he's never killed a symmetrical.
Yeah, like
buck.
his two best bucks that he's got mounted. One's a 7-point that's 20 inches wide, or
21.
21. Sorry, I want to steal an inch. But and then his big 9 that was field dressed at like 200 pounds, that was a stud.
huge buck.
And that was peak rut. So I mean, he had been running and was at that weight.
Yeah, there wasn't a.
But yeah, so yeah,
ton of fat.
must get it from him because, I mean, I don't know, I always liked those unique looking racks.
Yeah, so if you're just out there meat hunting, that's fine. Go hang your tree stand where you can see a long distance, and go out there in rifle season. That's 100% fine if that's, what you're into. But like me and Frank and Nick and basically all my family, if you're out there hunting, trying to get a mature deer, it's a year-round thing. I mean, up at our farm up in New York, every other weekend we're up there in the summer planting corn,
Which is 200 miles away.
yeah, corn, soybeans, clover, brassica, you name it. We're up there planting food plots, hanging new tree stands, trimming tree stands, working on trails, doing hinge cuts, making it prime bedding, and the work is definitely paid off. Usually every year, 2 or 3 people harvest a big mature whitetail.
Pope and Young class.
Yeah,
Every year.
which out of New York State is pretty remarkable. So,
Well, Tom, thank you very much for that. Write it in pen. It's been a fun episode here. I really enjoyed. I've heard all of your hunting stories, but sometimes
Been
you
a part of most of them.
Yeah, I've been a part of most of them. Agreed. But it's always good to go back and touch base on them because there is so many where you start to, you forget about them until you start talking about them. And I just want to leave it with Tommy on that write it in pen. That was a really good point. And so basically, anybody out there that's listening, make sure that you guys are putting in the work. And as always, getting outside.